Hello, hello, hello. Today I'm talking with Lisette Sutherland. We talked about cleaning hazardous waste sites, about working from a van, and being a young, naive brat when she started in the workplace. I'm Yves from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it. Hello, hello everyone, and hello with me I have Lisette.
Hello.
Good
Thanks for having me.
afternoon. Well, I'm actually really happy to have you here and having you here. I want to show a little bit on where we are, and for me, and this is in Ghent, Belgium, and we're going directly thanks to Google. I think you're still in The Hague, if I'm correct. Is
I
that?
am. Yeah.
And for the time on my side, it's 15 after 5. Let's bring you back on screen. It's 15 after 5. And what's the time on your side?
Same time zone. We're close enough. It's amazing.
Yes, these days sometimes it's not always clear, but with the Netherlands and Belgium, we're in the same time zone. So yeah, no surprises there. I would say. Lisette, for the few people that don't know you, could you introduce yourself a little bit? Who are you before we jump into the questions?
Okay, I would say I'm a facilitator, author, and speaker on the topic of remote work. And that's sort of what I've done for the last 15 years. And the company that I run, we help people work better together remotely through free resources, and we have paid workshops. So if you want to actually come in and do a synchronous session, then we have facilitators from all over the world who give these workshops on how to work better together remotely.
Exactly, and that's one of the things I did at some point. I think I was a big fan of your book first of all, and then later on the workshops and everything that is joining there. So and like you discovered just before we started, somewhere there you have your book. Uh,
Spotted immediately. Yeah.
yes,
I look at every bookstore, it's always fun as an author.
I can imagine. Well, yeah, I recognize that. Well, even just books from not just only books from myself, but books from other people. I think it's indeed always fun to do that and to look at these kind of things. So indeed, that is fun. Okay, let's jump into that very first question, Lisette. So what is something, oops, and I moved that for another person. I moved that around a little bit. What is something that people usually don't know about you, but has influenced you in who you are?
I love the question, by the way. It was an interesting one to think about. I was like, gosh, what don't people know? I mean, pretty with social media, you live out loud, It's but I
Mhm.
think what I came up with was is that I've had sort of three distinct, different career paths that people may not have known about. I started actually my career as a hydrologist, and I
A
cleaned up
what?
a hydrologist. Indeed,
What
I
does
was
that mean?
yeah, I was studying. It's the study of surface water, and so I was cleaning up, and what I did is I cleaned up hazardous waste sites for the Environmental
Oh,
Protection Agency.
wow.
So we would go in and do a survey and see what was going on and take samples and do all these things, and then we would write reports about it, and then we would clean it up, and then write a report about how we cleaned it up. And I cleaned up, yeah, a lot of hundreds of hazardous waste sites in California.
And
So that
and
was
was that dangerous work?
Sometimes, I have to say sometimes it was, and I think it was a little bit surprising. It surprised me how dangerous it was. I remember one site we worked on, it was, I can't remember, oh, a plating, an auto plating industry. That's basically where you take like the bumpers of a car and you dip it into a solution and it
Hmm.
plates the bumper so that, it's got like a nice chrome plating or so. I don't know that much about it, but that's what I understood at the time. And what they were doing is they were taking in other people's hazardous waste and being paid for taking in the waste because the assumption was that they were going to dispose of it. However, they didn't dispose of it. They kept it all on site. And one day a fire broke out and nobody knew that
Wow.
high hazardous waste was there. And what you don't know about hazardous waste is you can't just dump water on it when a fire comes out. There are special foams and things that you use, so that things don't go into the air, and that people, the residents in the area, it was a highly residential area. So yes, sometimes it was really scary because nobody knew what was in the drums. So we had to very carefully open drums, sample them, figure out what was in it based on how, the acidity and all the different things that you go through. But yeah, sometimes it was dangerous. For the most part, it was really boring. They were like gasoline sites that they'd spilled gasoline and soil, so you'd have to figure out how big was the spill, and then basically just dig it up. But on some sites, it was really
And dig it
spectacular.
up, does that mean that you have to be in special suits, or is that,
Yeah, yeah, we wore the space suits and the respirators and the whole the whole 9 yards. Yeah. Yeah, that was, I started
wow.
my career doing that, and, I mean, I was an environmentalist at heart growing up, and so what I just wanted to save the world. I didn't really realize even that you needed a degree in these things. So when I went to college, I was a little bit naive in terms of what I was doing. And then
Mm,
at one point, I was looking around. I'm sitting in an office and I'm looking around and I'm thinking, I did not imagine myself being an office person. Like, I just
mm,
one day had this, I mean, I remember the day even, but I remember just looking around and being like, I don't belong in a cubicle. Like, this is not what was meant to be. And within months, I again, when you're young and dumb, you can do things that later when you're older you think like, oh my god, I can't believe I did that. But I quit my stable hydrologist job, and I went into the music business and just started doing shows in Los Angeles and in San Francisco and touring with bands and managing bands. And I just sort of switched gears completely. So that was my career number two. When you were saying like what people don't
mm,
know is I had like hydrology was the beginning. I switched to bands, and then from there discovered remote work because I was traveling with bands and working at the same time at like a real job to
mm.
make money. And I discovered like, oh my
So
God,
the
I'm living and
bands
working from a
didn't
van.
pay anything, or
They
not enough
pay
to live
very
on?
little. Yeah, they don't pay enough to live on. And at the time I was working, there's a lot, the path of getting there is long, but I was working for an online project management tool 20 years ago. And this was right when Basecamp had started. I mean, Zoho was still on the market. These were old tools back then. The project management tools these days, there's hundreds, but at the time there were like five, and we were one of them. And so because I worked for this online project management tool, I was able to work from anywhere. The idea was not to work from a van, but the opportunity arose, and I just had to go, and so I took the opportunity to travel the world and work from a van, which is how I became so enthusiastic about remote work, because all of a sudden I saw the possibilities, and you can never go back once you've had an experience like that.
And yeah, you have a very nice example indeed of if you're living in a van across the world. I mean, yeah, it's especially 20 years back, if that was already possible, yeah, what can't you do
Oh
from
man,
other
the
things?
tools were so clunky 20 years ago. I mean, I had a mobile router with a suction cup. It was like this big. I get, if your people are watching, it was suction cup that you would stick to the car window so that it would get good enough reception, and
Wow.
yeah, it was like really old school. So yeah, today it doesn't sound like much. Digital nomads, or they got it easy back in my day. No, but it really, it really was different 20 years ago. But the idea of that freedom is really what drove the whole thing. And at some point, the music life, it was a love, but at some point I really needed to make a living. So there was a choice to have been made. There was a choice to make. You can continue on the road with bands, but you have to be a really big band to make any real money as a
Mm.
musician.
Yeah, I can imagine that, yeah, well, um, and I think, yeah, it's part of growing is being on the road all the time and playing in very small clubs. And I think that makes it possible. But again, then not everybody makes it, of course, because it's a tough life, like you say, not making a lot of money. And so I think many of the big bands that we have now have been touring for a long time before there came actually some money inside.
I mean, REM famously said that they were playing, almost 10 years before they even got picked up. So, and there's tons
Mhm.
of bands like that. And there are tons of bands that deserve to be bigger that just aren't for some reason. That's also, so some people are lucky, some people not. So it's really luck of the draw on that. And I think it's harder and harder these days.
Yeah, and I think even some of the bands that we were seeing in on stages in Europe, like yeah, and large festivals, we don't always know that they actually back in their local area, they're completely unknown and might be earning little money. If I hear stories about, for example, the Pixies, that yeah, now they're much huger and they had a large following, but yeah, not at the level that it would make them lots of money back in that day.
Yeah.
Because before they had theirs, I don't know if it's a second or a third or a fourth career, but everybody else was working again, doing something else. So that's yeah. And like you
Yeah.
say, hard work, hard life on the road as well, and that's that you see a lot of other things because of that.
Oh man, just the instability. Like every night a different place, every night a different bed, every night different food. Like you're just not in control of many of the things. And then there's the boring aspect of, like, in the United States, if you're touring, you're driving 12 plus hours in between gigs. Whereas in Europe, in 12 hours, I could be in Poland or something. Like, you don't drive that long of distances, but, there's a
Mhm.
lot of boredom on those long roads. And then all of a sudden you got a huge gig, and you're up until 2, 3 in the morning. And it's I'm glad I was younger. These days it would be it's like these days it's harder as you get older.
Exactly. So, but that's yeah, I can imagine. So, how did that influence you? Because that's the second part of that question. How did that influence you on? We already see a big part of the remote work and everything you learned there. Were there other things? Because like that unstable life, how did that influence you in who you are today, for example?
Well, I mean, I became an entrepreneur, which has a lot of instability built into it. It's like a
Mhm.
constant hustle for all the work that all every workshop is a lot of work, and getting attendees. It's not like just workshops flood in every day. It's like you have to build a sales funnel to make that happen. And so, I mean, if I think about what my influences are, I would say from working in the engineering firm, there's an influence on structure and time management and accountability, because engineers, they're really in hazardous waste sites. There's a lot of rules, and they're serious about the work. You can't mess up. So there's not a lot of fluff. You got to really schedule things well, and you've got a team to run. And so I learned a lot about project management from that. And with the music, one of the things that I really take away from the whole music life is, I was not on stage. I'm not a singer. I mean, I am a musician, but I never played on stage. I was the manager. But what I
Mhm.
learned from those shows and watching the musicians, and that I bring into my work now, is that I see facilitation, or I see my workshops as partially as a show. So when
Mm.
I show up, like, it's not that I'm on stage, it's like the audience is always the one singing, except for
Mhm.
that, like, I try to look good. I've got great lighting, my internet, like, and then I've got, it's multimedia. I've got videos to show. I've got polls to give. I've got video, music to play during the breaks. I've got all kinds of sort of whiz bang things that makes it a little bit of a show to keep people entertained online. So, because, if it's just a class, you could do that asynchronously and just record a boring video. But if you want to have an experience online, you have to build that. So I took away from the bands, like, how important it is to put on a show.
Mm. It's not just about the music, because indeed then you can put on the CD or whatever you want to have the full
Yeah.
package.
Yeah, nobody wants to go to a show and see their favorite band in their sweatpants. You want to
Mm.
see your music god on stage. I mean, sometimes you want to see him in your sweatpants. Depends on the band, depends on the show, all those things. But in general, like Taylor Swift doesn't come out on stage in her yoga pants like that.
Oh.
That's not part of the show. So yeah, I took that away.
No, no, but I can definitely see that, and there is definitely a show part, and then yeah, sometimes people say, yeah, I want to be authentic, yeah, but it there is something that connects the audience, and it can still be in an authentic way, and we come for the show, and yeah, I've seen a few concerts where for me the music was like almost the same as what I heard on the records, and very predictable. And yeah, for me, that I like much more that there is more interaction, that is unpredictable about the show, because yeah, otherwise I could just yeah watch a video like you say, and yeah, that's there is something, I don't know, special about going to a show and not knowing what will happen, how the interaction will be with the audience, and yeah, all of that.
Yeah,
That
the
makes it fun.
atmosphere that makes it magic, you know? Like you're
Exactly.
standing in the middle of a stadium and they don't have lighters anymore, but we've got our phones up in the air with the light shining, like there is nothing like that moment of
Mm.
being there. And so, yeah, I think that part of being online is creating that atmosphere somehow. So
Yeah,
I try to bring that's what I bring into my
I can definitely see that. And I do well also in the remote trainings when you talk and teach people about remote, you're actually paying much attention and telling the fellow facilitators that that's indeed what people should do much more. Pay attention and make well. I don't think you use the word show, but I can definitely relate to that. It's
Yeah, I say
you
it's
want people
experiential. Like I
exactly.
want you to experience online what it is I'm
Mhm.
teaching. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
really like that. Let's move to that second question. If you had not been doing what you've been doing now, do you have any idea what could have become of you?
So as a, you're like, who knows? My God, like all the different twists and turns we all take in our lives. The obvious answer is probably I would have stuck with music. That once it's like my first love in general. But actually, as I get older, if I had it all to do again, and like money's no option, you don't have to think about career path or any of that. I would have become a seamstress. I would go into making clothing, designing clothing.
Wow.
Like, I would have totally gone in that direction. I didn't know as a kid that you could do that for a living. I thought it was just hobbyists. I just didn't like musicians. I just didn't know you could do that for a living. I went into like engineering because it just sounded like, you know, what people were supposed to do. But yeah, I think in my other life I would have become a seamstress.
That's yeah, but that was not an option when you grew up, or that you didn't think that it was an option.
No. Like, I didn't know you could go into fashion. Like, it just I don't know why it didn't occur to me. I just didn't it just sounded too glamorous to really be a job.
Mm,
I always had the idea that a job was, like a slog. Like you're supposed to endure your job. That's sort of the I don't know where
mm.
that came from, but I didn't know you could do glamorous things.
Well, being a manager of a rock band, could some might see that
Oh,
as glamorous, but then again, life on the road is not as glamorous as
yeah.
much.
Glamorous looking, yeah, indeed. When you're in that cold hotel room without plumbing, it is not glamorous at all. Yeah, indeed. No, I
Yeah.
mean, I have to say, being on the road was glamorous and in that, but that's after I escaped the office to the first time.
Mm.
So,
So yeah, that's but yeah, it's an interesting because you already had multiple careers, that then there was still another option that you didn't even think or didn't even consider that. So I guess there was no role models around you that did something similar like that. Or
could just be the way that my brain is structured, I'm not sure, but
Hmm.
now, as an aunt, I really do try to with my niece and nephews, I really do try to take them out to experience lots of different things. Like I take them once to a climbing hall and next to a personal trainer, and then we go to, because I want them to see the different options and career paths outside of their own normal family things that they would see there. So as like aunt and uncle, we make a special effort to expose them to the unusual, just
I like that. It's
that's
yeah,
my way of like really making up for it, you know?
well, yeah, because indeed, maybe if you had an aunt or an uncle that would have helped you, maybe you had a different life, a different career. But again, it already seems very interesting as what you did until now. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy
And
with
is
how
that
things turned out. Yeah.
and yeah, that's a little bit kind of in the direction I wanted to ask. Is that would that ever be an option? Because with everything you do, that now you say, well, actually, that could have been an option. Would that still be something that interests you?
I'm still interested in it. And of course, I've got my own side seamstress hobbies of, like making my own clothes and, designing things. And, I do fun projects for myself. Like, for instance, I'm going to be hostessing the ORDEV conference this year. later this year. And so I'm designing. I have to be, I'm only on stage to introduce other people and to introduce the conference, but I'm using it as an opportunity to design my own clothing line for those 3 days, like
Hmm.
several outfits. Like one for the first day, and then one for the party on the first day, and then the second day's outfit, all
Wow.
but within the theme of the conference. And I already
Wow.
know what the theme is, but I'm not allowed to say because it hasn't been announced
So,
formally yet. But it's a fun theme. So I thought I'll take the conference theme, design my own line. Nobody has to know, it's my own personal project, but that's sort of how I make myself a seamstress without making a living at it, just kind of building it in.
yeah, because that's I think that's also a very interesting way of looking at it. Not everything has to bring in money. A little bit like what you said when you were working with that band on the road, you were doing some other stuff to pay the bills, basically. So it could be something similar. You have something that you're doing, paying the bills, and then making your own clothes in a certain way. It. I think many of us sometimes try to combine multiple careers without all these careers needs to bring in a lot of money in a way.
Yeah, it's good to be clear on what's a hobby and what's not,
Mm,
because if you really want to build a business about it, there are methods to use. So
mm.
don't, with sewing, it will now just remain a hobby. Like if something came up, I might run off and join some haute couture house and sew away my days. But I for now it's just going to be a fun hobby.
But that's indeed like,
Yeah.
yeah, like you say, some things can be stay hobbies as well. That's also nice. Thanks for sharing. Let's move to that third question. What do you consider your biggest challenge right now, and why is it a good thing for you? And of course, the biggest challenge that you want to share openly on the internet.
Oh, right. Yeah, right. Uh, I find your question so interesting, though. Why do you ask why it's a good thing? Like it's a
Mm.
challenge and it's a good thing. So I'm curious behind your question, if you don't mind answering that first.
Yeah, for me, I think, well, with many of the things that are challenging, we sometimes can learn something from it, and so for me, it's a way to look at both sides. And there are already people that said, well, this is so huge challenge that, like, no, there is no good thing for me, or I can't see the good thing yet. I even had one person that out talked to me afterwards. Like, in that conversation, I discovered some of the good things that I didn't see before. So that's also sometimes interesting.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, this is also why I'm saying what you're ready to share, because sometimes people have a much bigger challenge where they're maybe not even know what's the good thing, and because they're still struggling with it, where they don't want to share with it, and so and for
Mm.
others, it's like, oh, I'm still struggling with it, but I can already see why that brings something to me, even though, yeah, it still is a challenge or is a struggle. So is there
Okay.
something like that for you?
For me, it's an ongoing battle. It's time management and focus.
Mm,
It's it'll go into the book that I recommend. But for me, because I work for myself and I work from home, like I could do anything at any time.
mm,
I'm my own boss. And so there is a certain glory and luxury, of course, to doing that. And, I also have to make all my money. So there's a balance between like drive and getting things done and being able to focus, and doing that on an ongoing, regular, day to day basis for yourself. So yeah, it's easy for a week, but like, try 10
mhm,
years. It's really ongoing because my motivation goes in waves and I don't have a lot of control over it. It just sort of comes and goes. And so but regardless of whether I'm motivated or not, I mean, that's where discipline comes in, right? Like, so regardless if I feel like doing something or not, I still have to, I still have to do it. So it's just a matter of just managing that on an ongoing basis. I think with a
yeah.
team or with going into an office, there's a little more structure. There's a little more like rigor. You're working with people, and you're seeing them work. But when you're really on your own, for me, it's not that it's a struggle, but it's just yeah, it's a constant challenge.
Mhm. I think this is something I've heard already from quite a few people working remotely or working from home. Yeah, I think it was my dad who once said to me, the people that hate most to work for the boss have the hardest time to work on their own for similar things like that. And I wouldn't say, and I don't think it's always the hate part, but I think there is some truth in the people don't always like the structure, but sometimes they need the structure. And
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen people struggling with setting up a structure for themselves because then they feel they're less free. And I have the feeling the better my own structure that I can set for myself, the more freedom I have to still achieve the goals I'm doing. But it is hard, and it's yeah, it's
Yeah, you have to choose. And I'm an ideas person. So, it's basically ideas versus time. Just constant ideas versus time. I've got buckets and buckets and Trello boards full of 100 billion ideas that I've had for things that I could do, things I'm interested, a new project. And then it's a matter of like, well, what do I have to focus on? What will bring me money today is really the question that always comes up. Is like, okay, how can I make money today? Like, does updating my website make me money? Great, do that. But that's not usually what makes you money. So
yeah,
that's
but
yeah,
because that's also a big part of being an entrepreneur. It's like, okay, you profit is nice, but you also sometimes profit is only after a while, and the cash flow is important as an entrepreneur. That you need that. Yeah, the more money you have on the bank account, well, for some things it's really needed to do stuff and stuff.
yeah. So yeah, that's the challenge.
Yeah, I really recognize that. So and so is there a part that is a good thing for you? Is there something that you've discovered already?
Um, for me, it's one checklists and structure. So if that's what works for me, like I have a set time when I get started, I have a set time when I end, and that way I can think of it as like, okay, it's a sprint. Like, okay, I just have to sprint until 5 o'clock, and then I can just I can turn everything off and just, or whatever time. So for me, it's like, okay, I've got only this much time to get things done, and then I can't get any more done, so I have to do it within this time, and I get to relax after that. Like I don't have to think
Mhm.
about it. I could totally turn off. And so for me, that time boxing really works. And I always start my week with figuring out what is it that I need to get done in terms of the goals I've set for myself, and then I time box my week with the tasks that I need to get done. And those things move around, but it's physically in my calendar what I'm working on, and then I just follow the schedule. I don't have to think. It's like if
Because
I
you did sorry, you did the thinking up front when you created the schedule. Is that
right,
how I should hear it? Yeah.
correct. I did the thinking up front. I don't have to think about that anymore. Now I just have to follow the schedule. And so I literally have my calendar on one screen, and it's like, oh, it's 3 o'clock. Okay, that means I have to do this now. And then I know if I follow the schedule, I'll get done everything that I needed to get done that week because I've already planned that. So things wiggle, things move around, meetings come in, stuff comes up, my motivation dips. So it doesn't all go according to plan. But there's like that great quote that says, well, I've got it on my startup checklist. It says on my Monday startup checklist, it says, plans are worthless, but planning is everything.
Mm.
And I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
I really like that. Indeed, and I think I've seen people from both sides misunderstanding, and people that hate planning misunderstand that, and people that love planning also misunderstand that. That they think it's only about the plan. No, it's the thinking about it, creating that plan. And I think the more we thought about it, the easier it is to deviate from a plan, to know what are the options, what are the priorities, what are the important things. And I guess also in a way understanding a little bit yourself, your body. What I don't know. Do you know, for example, if there is certain work that you are better at doing in the morning and in the evening, or do you?
it's not that certain work, but it's more my energy level starts. I know that I have to get things done. The biggest, most important things have to be done first because in the afternoon, my energy level dips. And that's when I go towards the easy stuff. So I just get tired, and yeah, it's just the way it is. So, and unless I've done like a big run in the afternoon or something, or then I just have to switch to easy work. in the afternoon. But that's all planned on Monday. Like I know this about myself. So,
But I think this is really important to share that, because indeed many people, yeah, don't think about that. What is the moment that you have most energy, and then plan on accordingly. And of course, if people plan for other people, they don't know what are yeah, the high moments in your day when you have most and less energy. And I think the better we know ourselves, the better we are at planning. And again, having wiggle room for, yeah, something might happen that throws you into a dip or whatever. But if you know, in on general, most days I have more energy in the morning, okay, then get going. And
yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is the whole beauty of being able to design of remote, right? You can design your time around your energy, around your location, around whatever it is that you want, right? It's I just think that yeah, I don't understand the people that don't want the freedom to do
mm.
that. Doesn't mean you have to be at home. Like design your time for at the office. My husband famously hates working from home. Like he went out and specifically found a job that has an office component.
To get
I
away
was
from, sorry, I didn't say that.
yeah, yeah, it's like I'm too much. I'm too much. I tried to warn him before we moved in together. That's fair. I was like fair game, I tried to warn you. No, but he really likes being around colleagues all day. I hate that. I hate that. I'm exhausted by it.
And again, this is knowing yourself, knowing what you
Exactly.
need. And I think that is also about remote work. I have people that said, well, I need people around me, but maybe I don't need to be in that long away office for the people I'm working with. Maybe I can just be in a co-working space where I'm surrounded people where I can talk to. But the moment I want to focus, I can focus again. And yeah,
Yep.
the yeah, other kind of things. So that is indeed good to know. And so thanks for sharing that, because I think it's a challenge that many people have, and the more we know ourselves, the better we go that. And that kind of brings us also a little bit about drive, because you talked already before, like environmentalist and saving the world, and then discovering remote, and again you have that drive to teach the whole world about working remote. And I've seen in many of these things your passion, your drive to, yeah, to, I wouldn't say convert, but at least evangelize people, like, hey, these are the advantages that can you do you know where that passion, that drive is coming from?
For I think it's really the if I were looking at a motivator, one is freedom. Like that is a huge drive because for me, and I don't know why, I don't know where this comes from. I had a good upbringing. I wasn't confined. Like in fact, I was the opposite of confined. I was allowed to do so much more than most kids were allowed to do when I was a kid. But I just felt like the office was a day prison. I just felt so confined by 9 to 5. It didn't make sense to me when life was happening differently. Like the work didn't stop at 5. And when I was out
Mhm.
on all these sites, we started like at dawn, and so the whole scheduled time box didn't never made sense to me. It just seemed like work was happening around that anyway. And so we were maybe in the old days, 9 to 5 was useful, but in the modern day, 9 to 5 doesn't seem useful anymore. So I think freedom is the thing that drives me. But I had a surprise when I took the Reese motivation profile that Pia Maria Torin introduced. And one of the things I learned on that was that one of the biggest drivers for me, I think the highest thing that I scored on the Reese motivation profile was beauty. That one of the things that's really important to me is beautiful surroundings and beautiful things. And I
Mm.
remember having this allergic reaction to cubicles back in the day because they were just these gray, dull boxes. And I couldn't imagine anybody being inspired in one of those things. And so I think
Mm.
maybe from the early days, the thing that drove me out of the cubicle was just the complete lack of personality that it brought into the office. I think it sucked my soul dry. I don't know what
And
it
then I
is.
can imagine that a life on the road, in a van surrounded by musicians, brings a lot more joy. Okay, the bars might not always be that glamorously in a way,
Yeah,
but
but
I
when
think
the lights go down and the stage lights up. You can be in the dingiest bar in wherever, but there's some
Mm.
magic happening there. And sometimes it's because it's so dingy. So yeah, beauty has all forms. Sorry to interrupt, but you gave me
No,
this
no, but
visual.
that's a little bit what I thought. Like that's there's a big difference between a cubicle and that kind of life,
Yeah,
and definitely a lot less gray. Um, and this is so I can definitely think that. So that's interesting. So you one part there is a lot of drive for you for because you love that freedom, but there is also that beauty, and I think that's is true for so many things. For example, of if I just look at well, the let me show here in front of me, of course, have these little cards that you have,
yeah.
that you've created. They're very colorful. If I compare them to other kind of cards with trainings and ever like, these are not dull, these are not great. It's like a lots of color. I think in your everything that you do around remote, your website is much more colorful than I think a lot more others. So I do think that bringing color in people's life is definitely something that you do in many ways.
Which is so ironic because I grew up as a goth kid until I was,
Mm.
just so I went from black to back to pink. Yeah. So yeah. So yeah. The one thing I learned about that though is it's important to learn about these Reese motivation things because I didn't even know beauty could be a motivator. That never even
Mm.
entered my radar. And so I think had I known about that earlier, it may have explained things a little bit better. Because you could say like, "Oh yeah, the cubicle was dull and soulless." On the other hand, um, I was kind of a brat, and like a naive, ungrateful brat at the time because one, it was a great company, it was a great job, there were great resources, and boo-hoo, the cubicle was gray. Put some plants in there, girlfriend. Like looking
Mhm.
back, it's like I was really naive in terms of I think I felt more entitled, naively entitled to more when actually I had quite a lot already at the time. So, there's a little bit of double there.
I can definitely see that. Well, I think for many of us, when we come to the first job, and then all of a sudden we think, is that it? Is that now what I'm going to do the rest of my life? And it's like I'm surrounded, and so I think a lot of us when we and if I look back with my first job as well, like or the first full time job I had, now I think it's one of the better bosses that I ever had, but I didn't see it at the time. It was a very small company trying to survive, and so there was lots of things that are not working perfectly, like not always getting paid on time, but still always getting paid. And I didn't always see the struggles that my boss had in doing some of that stuff. And I think it's only later when I worked in multiple companies, I could see the value of that company, I would say.
Yeah. That's the downside of youth, huh? What do they say? The youth is wasted on the young. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We have all this hindsight. So yeah, I look back in gratitude.
But thanks for sharing that because it shows that well the drive for you is coming from multiple sides, and you again like you look back and then you see, oh, okay, maybe I was a bit spoiled at that time. I didn't appreciate it. And I think that's also some of the things that I'm trying to teach younger people sometimes, like, okay, you might want to appreciate, but of course, most of the time, they just think, this is an old person that doesn't understand me.
Yeah,
Um,
it's true.
and I think, well, I think my children have the very same thing, that they don't always see what they're I know that one of my sons had to do an exercise around diversity, and so it was very interesting for him because he learned a lot, and at the same time he said, like, I didn't realize that I had so much. Like, I don't think I but then it's like, from the moment that you're able to go almost every year on holiday, um, if you actually have food every day at the table, that's already a big advantage over so many other people. And yes, most people consider that very normal. Luckily, I would say, because that means that is very normal then for many people, but it's still not normal for a too large portion of the
Yeah,
world, I would say.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's yeah, you gain a lot of perspective as you grow older after having been kicked in the teeth by life on different levels. You know, gain a lot of respect and gratitude for the things that we have. That's for
And all
sure.
of a sudden, you sparkle more, and you were less black, and yeah,
Yeah, had to grow out of that. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. I had more gratitude. I had to grow out of all that. Yeah.
and there's still value in how we grew up and what we were, because it was also creating our personality. I think that that's
Yeah,
also an
indeed.
important
And I'm
part.
still a huge music fan. You know, I still love all that stuff just from the comforts of my own home office with my awesome headphones. Yeah, much.
Pink ones as well.
Yeah, pink ones as well. That's for my sister. She knows me too well.
I want to move to that next question. What do you consider your biggest achievement so far?
I have to say that growing collaboration superpowers, I'm going to consider my biggest achievement because I didn't set out to grow a company. I didn't set out to build a company. That was never the goal. My goal was to survive while working remotely, not going back to an office. And it wasn't always possible. I did have to go back to an office a little bit in between, but the goal was never to build this company. That sort of just happened through inspiration and mentorship along the way. But in
Mm,
the beginning, the goal was just I just wanted to make a living working at home. I didn't care how, and it turned into collaboration superpowers. And when I look back, even if it ended today, I feel like I could really just stand proud with what was built because lots of people try building companies and don't succeed. And it's not like collaborate, it's not like I'm super rich. It's not like collaboration superpowers is this wild success. But yeah, it's more than I ever thought I could do. So I'm just
and it
wildly
allows
proud
you
of
to
it.
do, yeah, it allows you indeed to work from home or from anywhere, basically, and to do that and have well, people that are supporting you, people that are yeah, loving what you do, are doing some of the training or co-creating a training with you, and doing, yeah,
Yeah, it's
lots of stuff
awesome.
there. So
It's awesome. The ability to collaborate with people all over the world from the comfort of my home office is so incredibly special. I love it. I love every minute of it.
I can, yeah, I can definitely see that. That well, yeah, being part of the trainings and being everything, and I just want to make sure I can actually show it to people a little bit. So this is the website, the collaborationsuperpowers.com, and this is just a screenshot of the website, just to show it
Dang, you did
where
that
there's.
fast.
Yes, but yeah, I thought it was important. I could have done more and I show everybody that are collaborating, because it's like right now there's like many people who are facilitating and helping out.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's a growing group of people that helping out, and yeah, that
And
work
teaching
with.
remote work and coaching others. Yeah, it's and running virtual co-working sessions and yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Mhm.
It's such a privilege.
For me, one of the things that I discovered with you is, well, first of all, there was your podcast that you had, where that's been going on also for a long time, or that you did for a very
10
long time.
years. Yeah.
So that, and there, I think you had an interview with someone from NASA talking about doing remote work from space. For me, that was one of the highlights of the podcast. When I first heard that, I was like, wow, okay, of course these people are working remote. How else would you do it? Because you need to collaborate with people from Earth. But and I don't remember much of that conversation anymore, but just showing like, hey, there is work that you can only do in a similar kind of way. You can't send 100 people to space at the same time, or not yet. So there has to be some kind of collaboration. There has to be some kind of things. I remember, I think it was during the pandemic, or I don't know, around that time, I saw something that they did on what was it? I don't know, on a spaceship. I think the thing that's still circling the Earth, and they were doing working out loud. Somebody working remotely to fix something. and doing that all in collaboration with someone from Earth and saying, I'm going to do this, okay, this is good, do that. It's like everything that we teach and that we talk about working out loud used in there. And yeah, that's something I discovered thanks to your podcast, thinking about that, like, okay, so yeah, I thought that's also something nice
You
to
know,
share with you.
I interviewed recently last year another astronaut. So the first interview I think that you heard was from the NASA, and they were doing the moon landing and coordinating like things on the moon and opening up all the moon data. And last year I interviewed an astronaut, Paul Richards, who had spent over 300 hours in space and even did like the EV spacewalks. And anyway, he when I asked him about remote collaboration, he said something so poignant. He said astronauts train to have the right information at the right place at the right time. And it sounds so simple, but he said that that's actually the key to remote is you're training to have like one source of truth. You're training to make sure that the information that you need is in the place when you need it, that you're not bombarded with everything. Because as
Mm.
astronauts, they have limitless data that they need, but they're trained to just access what they need when they need it. But that means that the data has to be where they need it when they need it. So but that's the same thing as with
And also
remote on
not
our
more.
teams.
Because I
Exactly.
know that many people struggle these days with Slack and other kind of tools that's like a
Exactly.
gazillion messages all at the same time. And yeah, so
Exactly.
that's
At Houston, they have the same thing. All the channels are open to everybody, and everybody can listen in and is listening in to all the channels at the same time. It's kind of an amazing thing. But he says if you want to get one person's attention, there is a protocol for doing that. And just like in Slack, you might at somebody, like at Eves and
Mhm,
get your attention. So there are protocols, but those protocols are very clearly agreed upon and practiced and outlined. And they have to do it to a really specific degree. Remote teams don't have to do it to that specific degree, but the principle is the same.
mhm. Yeah, I definitely I agree, and I know that at the current company where I'm, we were sometimes struggling. Okay, when there are crises, how do we deal with that? And we actually I had a conversation just last night with somebody in the car going home about that. We need to get better at when there is something. Okay, we need to have a special channel when you reached in that way. And in our minds right now, that's not Slack. We still haven't had the discussion with everybody, but in our minds, like if there is a crisis, there is a certain protocol, and that's what you do. And then people know, like, okay, if that's I'm reached in that kind of way, I know I have to get full attention, drop
Right.
whatever I'm doing, and yeah,
Yeah. You
because
don't send an email when your house is on fire, right?
no, that's exactly you. That yeah, there is a specific number that you call, and these people are there, and they yeah, I have the husband of my sister, or the former husband, because he died unfortunately, but he was a fire brigade, and I know that yeah, while they were at the fire brigade, they might do a lot of things. They might sport because they want to keep them busy, they want to be healthy, but the moment that bell rings, it's like drop everything, and within X amount of time, you have to be in that car all geared up, and you have to get out. So that is and you train for that, these kind of things.
Yeah. And I think that teams can also, I mean, we don't have to train in the same way, but the principle remains the same. There's statistics out there that say we spend up to 1 to 2 hours per day looking for information. Like
Wow,
that's
that's a lot.
crazy. It's a lot of time. It's a
And
lot
and
of
all of
time.
us and all of us together. I mean, like that's yeah, that's insane.
Right? A little bit of organization, a little bit of agreed upon protocols. It's the boring stuff behind the scenes that makes the in front of the scenes stuff run really well.
And yeah, and I think that this is what the management and this is what the tools around can help also for the creative people, that or the people doing the work, that making sure that that information is there, just like a band, yeah, needs to have
Exactly.
their playlist in front of them, and they might invent it, but then there is a, I don't know, a stage manager that will make sure that every musician has that plan in front of him. the guy at the mix or the girl at the mixing table has the same thing, the lightning. Everybody needs to have that same information, needs to see it, and needs to, yeah, have that
Yeah,
kind of information there.
totally,
So,
totally. It's just, yeah,
lo-
we're busy. Everybody's busy. That's the problem.
well, we're busy and we're ignoring that we need to make time for that. And I think at many companies I've seen that, yeah, yeah, there is then a wiki or something else, and then we say, oh, it doesn't work anymore, so let's replace it by something else. And in the beginning that works because or most of the time it works because we spend some time reorganizing it. But once we have the system in place, we forget to maintain it. And
Right,
then we think, oh, switching tools will help us. No, it's just the
right.
maintenance that you need. You should not better stay with the same tool, but spend that amount of money that you would do for moving to another team to, okay, how can we make sure that we all, yeah, maintain it or have somebody responsible for that and doing some stuff around it. So great additions to that. Thank you for that. And in a way, we're kind of going organically to that next question. That do you have a personal agility tip to share?
Oh man, let me look what I wrote down for my answer. A personal agility. Ah, for me, it's checklists.
Mhm.
I know it's not necessarily personal agility, but I can give an example. Like I have a really hard time getting started in the mornings. Like I'm not a morning person. I feel like I've got the
Mhm.
whole day ahead of me. Like I've got all the time in the world. It's just like a weird mindset that I've got in the morning. So I've got a specific time when I start work, and I've got a startup checklist. I've got one for Monday, and then I've got one for the rest of the days of the week. So on Mondays, I start in a different way than on Tuesdays, but the rest of the days, I just run through the checklist. And then I know, by the end of the checklist, I'm up and running. But in the beginning, if I don't know where to start, I feel really overwhelmed and I can procrastinate and read the news, which is always interesting. I can just scroll
Or
Reddit.
never interesting, but
Yeah,
we're
or
still
never, but
looking
I'm
for
still
the
scrolling. Yeah.
we're looking for that interesting article
Yeah,
anyway.
the 1 and 3, yeah, indeed. So, I have my checklist, and that's what I rely on. So that's my agility tip is, yeah,
I
visualize your work and use checklists.
But I think again, you show that you know yourself, you know where the hard part is, and you know how to solve it in your personal way. That is helping for you, and it might be different for other kind of people. But I think that's so, and yeah, indeed, checklist is typical thing. There's a reason why pilots have a checklist. Okay, let's make sure that we don't forget it. Because it's the boring thing. We always have to do the same thing to get started in a way, and sometimes you forget it. And yeah, it's yeah, I think it's also what sometimes as parents we used to do with younger children. Okay, you make some kind of, if it's a Kanban board or whatever, some kind of visualization of this is how, well, maybe not about getting dressed, but some of the other things. Well, getting dressed in a way, it's like you put the clothes in the order that you want your child to put them on, and if they change the order, basically we don't care, at least as they kind of put everything on. But it's kind of showing them like this is how to get started. This is the work that's still there, I would say.
Totally. Totally. In fact, when my nephew and my niece, they come over to stay the night, the first thing that we do is we take the board, we get it sticky notes, and we do a want to do, doing, and have done. So everything
Mm,
they want to do when they come over, we've got it in one place, one thing per sticky note, and then as we're doing them, because they are like cats, right? They're just distracted by everything, and they'll go in all the directions. And being the aunt, I want to give them everything. So the Kanban board helps focus them, like, oh, we're doing this right now, and when we're done with this, we'll put it in the we did it pile. Like, and when we're done, and the best part is at the end of the weekend, or the end when they've stayed over, then we can look back at all the good things that we did. So we've got a memory and a record of everything that we did, and we can then rank them and what was the most fun and what was the least
right.
fun. So I'm slowly trying to teach them sort of, time management and task prioritization principles while making it fun. I feel like that's
Yeah,
my
but
job as an aunt.
but at the same time they learn so much because, like, well, they learn the practical stuff, but also like, hey, I can actually choose, and maybe I think something is nice, and if I look back after the weekend or after whatever time I spent with you, I realized that this was not as much fun as I thought. So maybe next time I will not put it on. And yeah, so because that's also hard as a child. You want to do everything, and not everything is possible. And then, yeah, they're not happy. And with you, they learn like, hey, maybe we did it, and then next time I might not do it because I've learned that it might be less interesting. So that's
Yeah, and we have a pile of things we can do for next time. Everything we don't get to just stays in the pile for next time,
mm,
so they don't feel like they've lost out. So if people
yeah.
have kids or nephews and nieces, that's a great trick. They love it.
I can imagine. I can definitely see that. Okay, let's move to, well, the of course the probably the both the easiest and the hardest question for you. What have you learned about remote working? Because you have so much there. Um,
It was a hard question to answer. I have to say I had to think about that. But what I came up with was uh, what I've learned is how much pain that people are willing to put up with. I mean, with just a few simple adjustments, working remotely can be really pleasant for a lot of people. But
mm,
I guess what I mean by this is I have a lot of people who come to me, or even my friends, they're like, "Oh yeah, I work remotely. It's really great. I really like it, but it doesn't, it's great. We're doing it great. We don't really need any help." And I'm like, "Well, can I just sit in on one of your meetings just to I just want to see what it's like." And you sit in on a meeting and you're like, they're totally not doing it well. The meeting is long and rambly. There's no point. There's a bunch of people without cameras on. Like one person's talking the whole time. There's 70 people, others in the meeting sitting around. It's just like these horrible experiences that I'm thinking they think they're doing it well, but in actuality, you're just hobbling along. And with a little facilitation, maybe an agenda, maybe a purpose. Like, what if you broke out into breakout rooms to discuss the topics and then just came back and reported? Like the small things that people could do to make their working lives better. It just surprises me how much pain people are willing to put up with.
mm,
So yeah,
that's
that's what I've learned. It's not a very positive one, but it's even after the pandemic with all these return to office drives, I'm like, man, have we learned nothing at all? Was that for nothing?
well,
you know?
yeah, I think in many ways, for me, what I've seen is before the pandemic, you had to convince people that things were possible. Now people have seen that it works, and okay, there's all kind of reasons why people want to get back to the office, good and bad. But I've seen also many people that keep pushing back and say, wait a minute, for this, do I really have to come here for half an hour? And yes, this might be an important meeting, but yeah, is it worth that I spent an hour or two in my car for the full day being here? For maybe this is just that half an hour that is important to be in person. Can't we just group it, or can we organize ourselves, and how do we deal with it? And it doesn't mean that physical work is not important. I mean, that you can still physically meet from time to time, but okay, maybe we can make some of the hard one. Yeah, it's
It's about being intentional. I always say teams that collaborate intentionally are the ones that have superpowers. It's the deliberate action. It's not leaving things up to chance. And you can't make everything deliberate and intentional, but boy, we could do so much better than we're doing now. So yeah, that's what I've learned about remote work is we're all hobbling along. It could be so much better and people don't know how much pain they're in.
And I think that's also, well, I think it's a little bit when yeah, I've noticed when I'm doing something and it might be stressful and I might know that it's stressful, and then things are out openly discussed, or something happened where it's gone, and like immediately I can feel it in my body, like, oh, this was actually a lot of pain. And even if I would know it that something is stressful, I don't always realize how much it's putting stress on my body. And then the day after, or I might feel it, or then in the weekend I might feel like, oh, what's going, oh, maybe that was actually very stressful, and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good to understand your body, the symptoms, the stress signals that your body gives. Everybody has something different. Like for me, it's ringing in my ears.
Oh,
Or like a really tight neck. Like it's always tight, but like every once in a while I get so tight that it hurts to turn my head. And so if I get
wow.
the ringing in my ears and the tight neck, then I know like I've reached a limit. It's time to pull back.
And it's then it's time to do something else.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, I'm usually rather bad. I feel it when it's too late. I just spent last week a night that I couldn't sleep for, because I didn't drink enough water the basically the week and a half before, and I didn't realize it again until it's too late, and then of course my whole stomach and everything is upset, and then it doesn't help, of course, to quickly drink water because it takes longer than that to adjust to that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's an
I
ongoing challenge. Yeah.
staying healthy and staying and understanding our body is like, wow. um, it's an incredible design, and at the same time it's like it sends us all these signals, and where I'm ignoring a lot of them or not realizing some of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Same. Same. Yeah.
so I want to move to that next question. What is a book that you have read or that you wanna talk about?
So I think I wrote down that I really so it's not the last book that I read. The last book that I read was Glitches of Gods, Jurgen's book,
Mhm.
his fiction book. I was one of the
Hmm.
beta readers, and I
Jürgen
actually
Appelo.
finished it. Yeah, I finished the whole thing. I've got a huge notebook where I printed out every chapter every week that he sent it, and I read the whole damn book. It was it was very
I
impressive.
had no idea it was near finishing already. So yeah, it's good to hear.
It's close and it's extremely impressive. But the book that I would want to talk about is Cal Newport's book, A World Without Email. And I
I
wrote
think
that
that's the
down.
book, right?
Yeah, that's it. It is so brilliant. It is so brilliant and is so on point, especially right now with what people are struggling with. Because what I hear people are struggling with beyond the remote work, like people are disappearing, the culture is suffering, we don't know what people are doing. Beyond all of that, the problem of information overload affects almost everybody. And we still don't
Wow.
quite know the effects of information overload on the brain, but we see it in our work on a daily basis, right? We know most people have on average between 6 or 7 different work applications sending them notifications at any given time. And we
Wow.
know that most of us are responding to those notifications outside of our own designated working hours, right?
Mm.
And people have a hard time turning off because we're getting so many damn notifications about our work.
Oh, yeah.
So and on top of that, this sort of back and forth style of communication, Cal calls this the hyperactive hive mind. And it's a way of collaborating made possible by all of this back and forth communication. It's not the best way to collaborate, but it is the easiest way to collaborate. And it's just sort of made possible through the messaging systems that have developed over time. And so, what he argues in this book is you can't stop these messages from coming. It's impossible. We've tried the flags, we've tried the priorities, we've tried the not CCing everybody and the folders and all the stuff. You cannot stop the messages from coming. What you can do is change how you work so that there is one source of truth, so that you don't
Mhm.
have to send messages about the unimportant stuff. You have to create more high quality touch points, is what he argues in this book. So, for instance, instead of having status meetings all the time, why not just have a dashboard where all the projects are listed on the
Where
dashboard? You
you
can
can
see what's happening
exactly.
in real time, right? Like simple change. I know at Tesla, they have a huge, they call it their justice board. After Joe Justice, who helped them
Mm.
create the dashboard, but they've got a justice board up, and it shows all the metrics across the company, and everybody can see them in real time, and they're automatically updated. And the only goal of every team is to make those metrics go in the right direction. That is your goal for the day. If it can be 0.01%, that's good. And I think that there's really something to that. So I'm not saying work like Tesla. I'm not a fan of Elon Musk. I'm not saying that, but I do really. When I heard Joe Justice talk about the dashboard that they built at Tesla, that helped every team understand their status and their place in the work, I knew that that's something that has to happen on every team on some level. I
Yeah,
even want to develop my own dashboard. I call it my Justice Bashboard.
well, I have been, we at the current company, we've been working on an information radiator because indeed we want to radiate, numbers that are for the whole company that are important for each and everybody to do that. And it's, I don't know, I haven't heard Joe talk about that, so that's yeah, something that is really interesting to see as well, because I do think it's, yeah, I believe in indeed like having how would I say it, places where people can find it. Yeah, what you said about notifications, I have literally turned almost they're all notifications off on my phone. I haven't installed Slack because for me it's like, if I'm in work mode, I'm on my computer, I will see the message. But if you need me outside, okay, outside business hours, and if there is something that is urgent enough to reach me, that's fine. But then call me. Don't expect me to yeah, to follow up on gazillion messages. And yeah, I've been a big fan of Cal Newport. I haven't read this book. I did read a couple of others that
Yeah,
I
deep
want to
work is what
show.
he's most famous for.
Deep
Yeah.
work is the one that I'm most known, and that is most known, I would say. And indeed, slow productivity to make sure that we can accomplish stuff without burnout. Because what you discussed before turns, yeah, it's a lot of burnout, and it doesn't mean that. And that's the interesting part. It's not about no productivity, but it's about, okay, if you. What people I've seen in many companies is we want to go in such a hybrid drive, and we may be achieving more, but then we burn out, and then we have to find people that are replacing the people or burnout, or the people that are kind of in burnout but not really, and they keep there and they're totally not productive, and that kills the vibe of everybody, and that doesn't help either. Or they get, yeah, very quickly angry or whatever that we have, so that's definitely not helping either. So yeah, I really, yeah, it's been on my list, on my to do, no, not to buy list. I haven't bought the book yet, A World Without Email, so definitely an interesting book to talk about.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I listen to it sort of regularly on my audiobooks
Yeah, that's yeah. It's for me. It's this is the kind of book that really works in on audiobooks, I would
for
say.
sure. Yeah.
I did the same thing with deep work as well. Okay, I want to move to that next question. What's a question that you think I should also ask you, and what's the answer?
Now this was so hard. I was just like, oh my God. But I came back actually. I was in a session of facilitators last week, and one of the questions that came up was, what does the world need right now?
Mm,
And I've been a little stuck on this question ever since. Because, in terms of like creating content and all of that, and I was just like, yeah, but, like, okay, if I took collaboration superpowers, like, what does the world really need right now? And I think that's a great question to ask. So when you were asking, like, what question should I ask? I'm like, oh, I don't know. And then that one came up, and I thought, I don't know, I'm stuck on that question. It's sort of an everlasting question. I don't have an answer. When I sat down to think of it, the things that came up for me were the world needs rest. I feel like everybody's exhausted. I don't know that we've collectively really come to grips with what we all went through together in the pandemic. Like that was, like there's sort of a post traumatic stress that maybe is emerging. I'm not sure, but it just feels like everybody sounds like they're tired. So I guess what the world needs right now is one, rest, and peace came to mind, given all the strife and the division and the wars that are happening, and then generosity. So I was like, the world needs rest, peace, and generosity right now. I don't know how that translates into business or my business yet, but I'm hoping to exude that somehow. And I don't know how yet, but that's what I'm hoping to give back.
but yeah, well, I think with what you, the book that you just shared before about, yeah, less emails is giving rest, is giving that, and I think you took it to a whole next level. I mean, it's not just about email and everything. It's like in peace in general, I would say, in all different kind of things. And I, yeah, from, or at least that's how I the your answer sounded to me, because for me, um yeah, when we see things going bad in the world in all kind of ways, the pandemic is over, but at the same time it's like, yeah, so many people still stressing out. I'm working with people who are working from Lviv in Ukraine, so they're definitely in the worst kind of situation that you
Totally.
can be. And but I also see it in many people in companies. The number of burnouts are rising in almost every company. I see, yeah, there's a lot of stress, people falling out. The number of people, I just saw an article, think, I don't know, somewhere this week, I think, about that there is never so many people who are ill in Belgium, long time ill, I mean. So
Wow.
yeah, there is, it's the world is not where I would hope it would be, in a way.
Yeah, we're sliding backwards a little bit in a number of key ways. Like when the war broke out in Ukraine, that was really an eye-opening moment for me. It felt so medieval. It felt like this is I thought this happened in like the distant past, and here we are with tanks and guns on the ground. It just it was a real wake-up call for me.
Yeah, well, I've been to Kiev in 2015, so that was a year
Wow,
after
the first
Putin
war.
start. Well, for them the war never stopped. For them it
R-
really felt
Indeed.
like it's 10 years going, and all my colleagues talk about a large scale war, and before it was the war. But what people don't realize is if you just lived outside Crimea, then that war never stopped. There were rockets all the time in the last years, but it hardly made the news anymore. It did in the first couple of months, and then kind of flew away. And everybody in Ukraine felt like this will continue and it will get worse. And I really remember being there in 2015, thinking, "Oh, it will get worse." And when I came back, I kind of forgot it in a way as well. Like, is it really? Did they exaggerate? And then you see, like 8 years later, you see, like, oh, they were actually right, and things did happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and indeed, like you, many other people around the world, like what's happening in this? And it feels to me like, yeah, we're kind of, yeah, as a world, thinking, oh, we don't need to react. But yeah, we do need to. I have the feeling my Ukrainian friends are fighting the war for Europe. I mean, like they're
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm reminded of it, yeah, daily. I bought the poster of the Snake Island,
Mhm.
where it said Russian warship. I don't know, am I allowed to swear on your podcast? Where,
That's okay.
where the guy said, Russian warship, go fuck yourselves. Like there's the guys on Snake Island who had to they had to yeah, I bought the poster. I was so inspired. I was so inspired, like the courage. I can't talk about it because I will just start crying. But the courage that it took, oh my god! I hope to never have to summon that kind of courage in my life.
Yeah, it's I agree. Like I sometimes say to friends, like I might be discussing with my partner and might have arguments about who puts the trash out, and there I have friends that are discussing, should we leave our country and our beloved
Right,
home, or
right.
should
It's
we
all
fight the enemy, and like that. These are the hard discussions to say, and that, yeah, people saying, okay, I want to stay because I want to defend my country, but then I have a risk of me or my loved ones dying, and how do you deal with that? And so yeah, that's the kind of hard discussions
yeah.
that luckily we don't have to make, or not yet have to make. I
Not
don't know
yet.
if things will go worse. So thanks for bringing that question about rest and peace, because I do think in the world is not, yeah, it's many things are better, many numbers are better if you compare to 100 years ago, and at the same time there are still a lot of things going on that could be, yeah, could be improved, and things are, yeah, kind of not where I hoped things would be.
Yeah.
I want to move to that next question about who should I invite next. And I think you had, yeah, at least
David
one
from
person.
Retrium is who I
Let's
suggested. I don't know if you've had him on yet.
I haven't had
Yeah.
him on, and so yeah, David. For the people that know, indeed, Retrium, and I think he also recently helped out with the second edition of the Agile Retrospectives book with Esther and Diane, who I both had here already. But yeah, for me, it's indeed, he created a very nice tool, or with his company created a nice tool for doing retrospectives. What's the reason for you to bring him on?
But, to me, the tool is an aside of what he did, and yes, he made a nice tool. Lots of people make nice tools, but what David also did is he dived dove deeply, dived deep. I'm not sure how. Anyway, he went deeply into retrospectives and really got to the essence around, um, what is needed beforehand, what is needed during, and what is needed after. And he really took really an academic dive into that, and did real research. And so I just like there's lots of people that have expertise around retrospectives, but I think David's one of the few who have really gone deep into the subject and all aspects of the subject. So I just consider him a real resource around that. And still to this day, I mean, you're talking to agile teams, so I know that a lot of people listening to this are agile, but there are still lots of teams out there that are not doing retrospectives at all.
Unfortunately, there are indeed, and I think it's one of the easiest or the most important ways to improve. If you do it at at company level, at team level, mixing teams, even at partner level, yeah, we've to these days with my partner once a week we look back on our week and we discuss our week, and it's not official called a retrospective because my partner of course wouldn't like me to use work tools at home.
Of course.
uh, but in the end it's a way indeed just looking how could you improve things in and I think there is nothing that is not well, I would say nothing that is worth doing is worth not improving, is not worth not improving. That's it. Either you should stop doing it if you don't want to improve it at a certain level.
Yeah. Yeah, it's we're like again, we're in a tremendous amount of pain that we're somehow happy to be in a lot of times. And so
Mm.
retrospectives are a good way of looking back. And yeah, I think on a team level they're good. Personal levels, I mean, I have retrospectives every quarter for my own company just to see like where am I at with my annual goals, like readjusting and all of that. And you bring up partners. I mean, you take your car in for a tune up regularly. Like relationships are the same kind of thing. I'm a big believer in that. And in fact, my husband and I wouldn't call her a therapist. She's more of a facilitator, but we have someone that we go to. Like when the
Mhm.
argument gets so intense that we can't work it out ourselves, we've just got somebody that we can call, and it's been invaluable. So call it a check-in, it's a retrospective, and it just, it happens as needed at this point. But there was a time when we went regularly just to like work through it. And I'm a big fan of that. So retrospectives on teams, and with David having gone so deeply into the topic, I think he just offers a lot to anybody who's interested in the topic at all. So yeah, I think you should have him
Yeah,
on. He's a
thanks
wonderful
for
human being on top of that.
Yeah, thanks for proposing. I just want to dive a little bit deeper in what you say. Yeah, having a facilitator helping a couple. I mean, like I have many moments in my life that me and my partner we had a person that helped us, and recently I came to the conclusion. I think the best gift to give a just married couple is just 10 sessions of therapy in a way, or couple therapy in a way, and not at the moment, and don't start at the moment that things are bad. No, start when you just getting married or just start together or whatever, living together, like okay, figure out what are better ways to communicate. And even if you're a very good communicator in your partnership, you can always improve at multiple kind of levels. So yeah.
100%. 100%. Yeah, I think on the management 3.0 team, we had an instance once where we had to get an outside facilitator to come help us because we just couldn't see eye to eye. And I love that we did that. It really helped. It just made sure everybody felt heard, that everybody got heard, that we all understood each other, because often we're saying the same things, we're just speaking a different language.
Yeah, I agree there. And it's an external facilitator can just help you understand and listen to each other in the way a message is meant to hear. And yeah, it's so natural. I think it's yeah, I've known people that prefer to say like I rather walk away than ask an external person to help. I was like, well, that's I find that sad because yeah, if
Seems like a
someone
shame.
can. Exactly. If you can deblock a situation and get deeper into that, then you get so much better value. again, at whatever level, if it's a remote team, if it's just a small team, if it's a family, whatever, if you can get these things through, that would work so much. So yeah, and indeed, like you say, um, David is someone that might be really helpful, and knowing that topic so well to help people with these kind of things. So thanks for inviting him. Lisette, it's been a wonderful time talking to you. If people want to reach out to you, what would be the good way to reach out to you?
I'm an email person. I know that, there's like WhatsApps and Slacks and LinkedIn's, and I read all of those too, but the most reliable way is to just email me. And my email's all over the internet. So super easy to find.
I didn't want to put the email here because I'm always not sure, but indeed, like with you, I think your email address is is rather easy to find in a way. So
Yeah, I want people to email me. Like my phone number is difficult to find. I'll tell you that. I hate when people call me. I haven't picked up my phone in years. But email, yeah, I love email.
mhm. Yeah, it's and then again with email, other people can jump in, other people can help out if you can use tools, automate and all that kind of stuff. You can make that work, and you actually, I think you made it work for you, with whatever needs to work. So yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
way
I
to
found
do
an incredible email app that helps. That really helps.
that. It's been wonderful time. I'm going to. I think both of us we saw that it was really good weather when we started. So it's still sunny outside. I hope it's still sunny in the Netherlands as well. So I'm going to let you go to go enjoy some more of the sun. I at least enjoyed this conversation very much. I was looking forward a lot to this, and I'm happy that we spent this time together. So
Me
thank you for that.
too. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other agilists.